almost empty again? I could swear someone is drinking my beer. Hello fellow YouTubers! Since its appearance in Tadatron's Austrian adventure video, some people have asked me about my beer dispensing machine. Well, around here we call it a beertender, and the one I have is produced by the German-based company Krups. Since its release about 10 years ago, give or take, it has sparked some surprisingly emotional debates whether it makes a whole lot of sense to get one or not. So in this video I want to give you a closer look at the device itself, as well as address some of the controversial arguments about it. Now, Krups released 3 models. A very basic one, which is essentially plug and play. A slightly nicer one with a display sporting a keg level indicator and temperature. And the finest one yet, which includes a keg level indicator that approximately shows you how much beer there's still left in your keg. Some sort of freshness countdown timer, I'll get to that shortly. And a temperature control, which allows you to set the beer temperature at 2 degrees Celsius or 4 or 6. Of course I prefer the coldest one. The device itself comes with a drip tray, which is washable in the dishwasher, and unfortunately doesn't have any sort of connection to the beer tender itself. I mean, would it have been that much to ask to include a small magnet or something? Well, anyway. Both in function and looks, the whole unit is some sort of love child between a thermos and a fridge. On its backside, just underneath the plastic chassis, it's got like cooling rods, well, not cooling rods, it's not a nuclear reactor, more like cooling fins actually, and a temperature controlled fan, not unlike something you'd find in a computer. It's audible but not annoying, especially since it's not in service all the time. This is what it looks like opened up. And the only thing that really comes directly in contact with the beer is this little pipe. So if you rinse that with water every once in a while, you're all set. So the whole device is practically maintenance free. Now to load it up, make sure the on switch is on, obviously. Take a pre-cooled 4-liter keg, and there's everything in there you need. You can't put it in the wrong way, otherwise you won't be able to close the lid. So as you can see, the hose and all the parts that come in contact with the beer are pretty much disposable and one-time use only. And thanks to the label, you always know what kind of beer you're tapping. And through this opening that corresponds with the pressure valve, air is pumped into the keg. And there you go. That's the pressure pump. The noise you're hearing. It takes about 30 seconds or something to pressurize the keg. And now you can see we got a full keg in there. Let's reset the freshness countdown. And that's what this is all about. Since it's operated with air instead of carbon dioxide or nitrogen like the professional kegerators at the pub, it only stays fresh once the keg is opened for 30 days. But the obvious advantage, of course, being there are no nitrogen or CO2 containers to change, and it's maintenance free. Oh, and let's set it to 2 degrees again. It jumps back to the default setting of 4 degrees, but I like it cold. Just make sure to give it enough space at the backside and on the sides so the cooling unit can function as it should. But now it's time for some of those arguments, of those heated debates. Well, I can't really argue with that. The beer tender itself cost me about 250 euros. Yes, that's euros, not dollars. And while that may not be astronomically, it's still an investment that people who stick to bottled or canned beer simply don't make. Also, if you're thinking you're able to save some money buying those 4-liter kegs instead of half-liter cans, you're unfortunately mistaken. Depending on the kind of brand, a keg costs between 12 and 15 euros, and you only get 5 euros a piece back when you return the empty kegs at the store. So the actual beer is also slightly costlier than if you'd buy the same amount in bottles or cans. Now, I'm not rich, but luckily I'm not in a situation in which I would need to save money so bad that I would have to buy the cheapest possible beer on the market. Plus, I don't buy it in such large quantities that it would make a significant difference if the price per liter is a little higher. Well, To each his own, I guess. It's a 4-liter keg in a mini beer dispenser. Of course you won't be able to dish them out like a bartender at TGI Fridays when you've got like 10 people over for a game. It's true, those 4 liters are empty real fast, especially when you've got company. When I'm expecting visitors, I usually have 1 keg in the tender and 1 or even 2 in the fridge that I put there the night before. And since my guests also like to drink wine and mead and not exclusively beer, those 12 liters might just last an evening. If that's still not enough, you can always use up more fridge space with 3 or 4 kegs or utilize a second fridge. After all, if you entertain guests with bottled or canned beer, you also need plenty of those and the fridge space to store them, which isn't exactly an argument for the beer tender, but also not quite one against it, I think. Whatever you do, just don't put a room temperature keg in the beer tender. That'll take it like 2 days to get those crispy 2 degrees Celsius. Indeed, there are currently only 5 brands of beer available for the beer tender. When it came out there were only 3, I think. Nowadays there are 3 mainstream Austrian beers, Heineken and a wheat beer. Personally, I'm not really choosy when it comes to beer. I mean, don't get me wrong, of course I've got my preferred brands and microbrews that I find tastier than those for the beer tender. But to be honest, none of those 5 brands are really bad or undrinkable by design. But of course, if you exclusively drink your rare, underground, artsy-fartsy microbrew and won't even touch this mainstream corporate bullcrap that us low-life mere mortals tend to enjoy, then you might not want to buy a beer tender. And you're probably a hipster douchebag. Really? I mean, seriously? Do you even drink beer? 4 liters, that's like 8 glasses like this, or 4 glasses like this, in 30 days, in a month? Heck, even I alone can drink almost like 2 kegs in one evening when I want to get shit-faced. 1 keg a month. God damn. Also, an unopened keg has a shelf life of like 3 months to half a year. Just be sure to check the best before date. All in all, I can say, of course, it's a gimmick, a quite expensive one at that. Of course, a beer tender is not something you absolutely necessarily need in your household. But if you use it right, and if you don't expect it to be something which it isn't, I think it's an awesome device. And it can give you that little extra ounce of happiness after a long day, if you know what I mean. But let's break out those iced glasses and put them to good use. This might take a while. So cheers, Prost and Kampai. And just remember, I'm not affiliated with the Krups company in any way whatsoever. You can trust the Austrian guy. Herr Krups? Yes, it's me. I just finished the video you've asked me to do. Ah, excellent. Of course you may transfer the 7,000 monthly to the usual account. Yes, the Swiss one. Ah, is this thing still on?